All right, welcome into the latest episode of Floor's Yours. This is an extension of 5 on the Floor. This thing goes everywhere, so you may be watching it on Twitter. You may be watching it on our YouTube channel. Thanks for the new subscriptions today. You may be listening to it between 10 and 11 a.m. on the Nothing But Net channel, and that is on Dash Radio. So download the Dash Radio app. And after you download that, just go to the Nothing But Net channel, and you will find us. So that's the place to go. I'm doing this from a slightly different location tonight, so I hope I'm not too echoey. I apologize for that. But my daughter is baking a cake in my apartment, not unsupervised. So hopefully the place will not burn down. We've got a couple of new people here with us tonight. Alf is going to be a couple minutes late, but he will be here. Alex Toledo beat him, so he gets the cookie. He's next to me here on the right side. He got
just like Dion, baby, making buzzer beaters.
That's right. Dion Waiters. We're going to talk about him tonight. Above me is David Fernandez. He's wearing the 5 on the Floor shirt. David has been contributing Marlins content to us, but doing some other things. So we will talk a little bit about Adam Conley tonight. No, we won't. But we may get a little Marlins conversation, but mostly Heat. And then above Alex, the only person younger than, one of the few people younger than Alex in the network, but he's been producing all of the stuff off the Zoom calls for us, the Heat Zoom calls that they've been having just about every day. Brady Hawk, you can find his 5 takeaways from all the Zoom calls. So hello, Brady. Brady is wearing, you can't see this on Dash Radio or on our podcast, but you can here on YouTube. He's wearing one of our new drip shirts, our Tyler Hero shirts with 14. They shut down our bubble shop. We don't know why. So you can't get that shirt right now, but he got a bootleg shirt before we shut down the store. So he's got a drip shirt. All right, we're going to go through some topics tonight. The first one tonight, we've got a bunch of things to get to. Make sure you listen to our episode from last night where we did a live stream. We did an hour, and then we did a podcast afterwards. Total overkill off a scrimmage. But the big news today was the Miami Heat put it out. They let some of the reporters know right before they released some video. Bam Adebayo and Kendrick Nunn are back with the Miami Heat, and they worked with the Miami Heat today. So basically, they got out of quarantine. They passed the 2 tests that they needed to pass. They are back. The Heat have a full roster. I'm going to go to Alex on this first. We've talked a lot about the difference of having Bam in there, particularly defensively. How quickly do you think they integrate these 2 guys, and how different does it look from what we saw against Sacramento?
Oh, I think it's going to look different in the sense that it's going to look a lot more like what we saw during the seasons. Like we talked about so many times, their pet go-to action is that Bam, Duncan Robinson dribble handoff at the top of the key, and I think we're going to see a lot of that. And we're going to see a lot of what Kendrick Nunn was doing as a starting point guard for the Heat all season, coming around screens, being a pull-up shooter when the big drops, or if the guys play up on him, going to the rim. And he's one of, let's say, 4 pull-up threats for them, but he's the only guy of those who can drive to the rim and attack the rim. So I think we're going to, it's good that they're getting him back. It gives them a little bit more variety to the offense. And we already know Bam's impact on defense. We don't even got to go over that part because that's where the Heat really kind of struggled last night. And, I can't blame them. But that was the Kings team without De'Aaron Fox. And that 2-3 zone with Kelly Olynyk and, Kelly and Myers by themselves out there on an island is just not great. But we see without Bam there just how much he covers up on defensively because it never looks that bad when he's out there.
Yeah, no doubt. One of the things we mentioned, too, they shot something like 44 threes last night. And, it was like 70% of their shots were threes. Now, I do have a little bit of information here that I'll share over the course of the pod or the course of this episode, because I did talk to some people related to the Heat today. And one of the things that came across, one of the reasons they feel so good about their chances is something that Buddy Hield said last night after the scrimmage. It's a shooter's background. The shooters love the background. It's dark. It's uncomplicated. And they feel like it plays right into their hands with as many shooters as they have on the roster. And it's not something we've really talked about, but they didn't really know what it was going to be until they get in there. And I can tell you the Heat players love it. They love it. Duncan loves it. Tyler loves it.
Could you go in more about the shooter's background? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a dark. What I was told was the shooters like it because it's a dark background. Basically, it's not cluttered in any way, and they feel like it's clean.
It's a more natural gym environment.
It's a more natural gym environment. There's none of the other distractions. I know that the Heat put in some distractions, but there's none of the other distractions that they're accustomed to. And I was told the players love it, and they think it plays right into their hands, and it's kind of fed the strategy of we're going to take even more threes, and that's the way we're going to go. Better depth perception that Benjamin says. I think that's true, actually. Just looking at it, looks like it. But I think the other thing is they do need to get to the line some, and Bam is somebody who can get to the line. They only had 3 players this year who averaged 4 free throws a game. Jimmy, Bam, and Dragic at 4.1 was Dragic. Kendrick not only averages 1.3 a game, Hero averages less than 2. Unless they develop that part of their game, which may not happen yet, they need Bam to be able to get to the line.
Did we see how many free throw attempts Jimmy got last night? Because now that you're talking about it, it's kind of going to be interesting to monitor their free throw rate in this environment, because that was something they really relied on offensively, was Jimmy's
I don't think it was
number
many.
1 free throw rate.
I think he got 2 and 1s. So
2 and 1. He got 2 and 1s, but I don't think he got any straight free throw attempts.
No.
Brady, we'll go to you on this. From what you saw last night, we've talked about Bam a lot. What can Kendrick Nunn add?
I think Kendrick Nunn could take away some of the stuff that Tyler Hero has to do. You know, he kind of struggled last night shooting the ball. I think Nunn really could. You know, we've seen it all year. He's not afraid to shoot the ball. He has confidence in shooting it. I think he could definitely take a little bit off of that with Tyler when he comes in for, either subs in for Duncan or in the second unit or whatever. But I think he could definitely, because as mentioned before, that mid range he takes something that we didn't see last night from any of the other guys. Really, they're all shooting 3-pointers. I think Alex said it about attacking the rim. That's something definitely that he can do that a lot of the other guys weren't doing last night. Other than Butler and Iguodala, we saw it a couple of times, but I think he could change the game up a little bit for the Heat, other than shooting 3-pointers.
David, do you want to see that? One of the other things we've talked about a lot on 5 on the floor is the Heat rolling more players than they rolled during the regular season. They kind of got to a 9-man rotation, and the 9-man rotation. Then they didn't have enough players because they didn't have Dion, Justice, and JJ. And then after they didn't have the 9-man rotation, then they had Iguodala and Crowder, and they were force-feeding the minutes down the stretch when they didn't really know what they were doing yet. Do you want to see the Heat play more or play fewer?
Well, I mean, to start, they definitely have to play more because you want to avoid any of those soft tissue injuries with a quick ramp up. So they have to kind of ease into what they're doing here early. But eventually Spo has a very sort of set rotation, and he's always been that way. Everybody has their role. I mean, we saw it when James Jones would start after not playing for a million years, I would like to see him kind of incorporate some of these guys a little bit more, but eventually he's going to set on, 8, 9 guys, maybe when we move into the playoffs, because that's just the way that he's always approached things.
Yeah, I think he might wait longer to do that, but it is a tendency. But I just get the feeling they're going to roll more. Can we address this before we move on to other stuff? I feel like the one thing the Heat fans were upset about last night was no KZ Okpala. And Victor Buckets is putting on their free KZ till it's backwards. I mean, how pressing is this to get? I feel like Spoelstra at the first scrimmage wanted to get the key guys enough run. That was the thing he wanted to do. I wouldn't be surprised if we see KZ in the second or third game a little bit, the second or third scrimmage. What's your expectation? With Bam back,
that might take away from Silva's minutes, so maybe we do see KZ as a result of that.
Well, I did. I thought Silva's minutes were pretty good last night, actually.
And less guard minutes for Gabe Vincent because of Nunn coming back.
Because of Nunn coming back, right? So maybe again we see KZ. But how important is it that we actually get a look at KZ now, or is this? I've said I think there may be a role for him, a small role for him as they go forward. How important is it that they get him some run?
I mean, they might as well at this point. There's no harm in these 2 scrimmages, and even as the seeding games, as they sort of take place, does it really matter? Kind of exactly if we're the 4 seed or the 5 seed. I mean, some of that stuff is up in the air, but it would be nice to see what you have in KZ at this point. And if for nothing else, just throw the fans a bone here early on with these scrimmages at least.
I mean, Brady. You're one of the people that follows the college game for us quite a bit. I mean, what is an expectation level for him at this point?
I think he could be definitely a top level defender, but I think you guys touched on it before. He's pretty much Derrick Jones Jr. Heading in that direction at least, and I think that's something he could definitely become. But I think there's, I don't know we don't know what the Heat are going to do with their draft pick this year. But there's a lot of guys like KZ Okpala in this draft this year. So I don't know especially if we have, we're going to have that lower first round pick. If we could, if we're going to draft a guy like KZ, I don't know if they do that after they drafted one last year, but there's still options.
All right, let's get to the next topic. And again, whenever Alf shows up, we'll try to plug him in here somewhere at some point. Again, check us out on Nothing But Net Radio, on Dash Radio, and also I should have a beer down here with me, but I'll get one after. Biscayne Bay Brewing. There you go. Biscayne Bay Brewing is at the official Marlins, and now Alf is joining us with a beer, most likely. Biscayne Bay Brewing, which is the official beer of 5 Reasons Sports, the Marlins and Inter Miami. None of us have won a game recently. We have not won a game recently. Inter Miami has not won a match. The Marlins are 0-0 going into tomorrow. Let's get to a couple more things here about last night's game, and then I want to move on from it. I talk about all the threes. After the game last night, Goran Dragic called Duncan Robinson the best shooter in the NBA. Now, he didn't say in the bubble. There's no Clay or Steph in the bubble. How far away is Duncan Robinson right now? I'll start with you, Alf. We'll get you right involved. How far away is Duncan Robinson from the best shooter in the NBA?
I mean, numbers-wise, he's right up there, isn't he? I mean, he's I don't have the numbers in front of me because I use my eye test and I don't care about the numbers. But for a guy that just goes out there consistently and when he has an open shot, like you feel like it's going in every single time. I mean, I legit think he's going to have a couple 10 3-point games in the playoffs. And that's going to be pretty wild when you think about the history of the league and guys coming in, guys like Duncan Robinson, undrafted, hitting 10 3-pointers in the game in the playoffs. Like he's going to have some monster games, and he's legitimately one of the most important, if not the most important offensive piece in a top 4 team in the East. And right now, I can't think of a single guy when they let the ball go that you think it's going in more than Duncan Robinson. And maybe it's because we haven't seen Steph in a while, and that might be it. And
or
I think that
or Clay, yeah.
And it might be a recency bias, and it might be a Heat bias because I'm a Heat homer. But yeah, if he's not one of the best, he's top 3, top 4 in the NBA without a doubt.
I mean, let's go through it. You said something else, which is going to bring up another topic here about who's the most important player on their offense, and I do want to touch on that. But give me somebody else right now active. I mean, again, Clay and Curry are not there.
Bertans
is not there. He's not there either. Buddy Hield, Trae Young is a different kind of player.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne Ellington at this stage.
No,
I mean he's not there either.
Wayne Ellington.
No, I'm throwing out guys.
I mean, Dame or Harden maybe.
Right, but who's a Duncan Robinson style player in the league right now?
Joe Harris.
Clay's, maybe that's a good one. That's a good one.
He is sharp. But Duncan is the best of them, though, and that's not. I don't even think it's a biased thing anymore. You could say Steph and Clay are still ahead of him, and for great reason, right? These guys are the top 3 of all time. But as far as this season, Duncan Robinson was the best shooter in the NBA. You look at the points per possession, whether it's off the handoff or just in general 3-point shooting. He's right up there. He was number 1, I believe. I know he was number 1 in handoff.
No, handoffs he wasn't close.
Points per possession by far, but and he was doing it on just a crazy amount of attempts. Again, he doesn't take the same types of shots that, let's say, Dame or Harden or Steph take, but at the same time, the shots are high difficulty, right? The guy is not just another standalone shooter who just stands there waiting for his shot. He will get that shot off, and his whole playbook is centered around getting that shot. As it's the formula is Jimmy, Bam, and Duncan Robinson. It's that simple, and I think he really is the greatest shooting weapon there is right now. I think it's him and maybe a not too distant second is Bertans, who's not in the bubble, like you said.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Go ahead.
And the interesting thing is that it's weird how when you watch like Steph Curry when he shoots the ball, it's like you feel like it's going in more than it's not going in. That's how it like feels like Duncan Robinson is now. It's just when he shoots the ball, it feels like you expect it to go in now, like that.
You're surprised when he misses.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good argument that the Bam Duncan Robinson dribble handoff is one of the greatest weapons there is in the NBA right now. This is something that Giancarlo Navas was saying over at Heat Beat, and I was really thinking about it like, Jesus Christ, because their points per possession on that play is like 1.6 or something. So they're getting guaranteed scores every time. And it's like,
yeah,
hardened ISO is like 1.15 or something. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's just it's dominant right now.
And it's amazing that Duncan did that last night without Bam. So without his main guy. So
well, okay,
he's
so
legit, man. I think that's really like he proved himself.
Well, I
And
think he's realized it now. I think that's a big part of this. Is that I think he's at the point now where he feels he should be shooting 10 times a game. But I want to flip this a little bit because Alf brought up an interesting topic.
Ethan, one thing I do want to say about Duncan that's encouraging lately, and it's just that it's the contested threes now. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to be wide open anymore to let it fly. Like you said, he's so confident. And I posted it on Twitter today where somebody, I think it was Christian Hernandez, posted the video of just him in and out, into the post, back out, back in, back out, sidestep, hits a three, and he shot it right. I can't remember whose face it was in. He just because it was a Sacramento Kings, so who cares? So he shoots it in somebody's face, and I mean, the replay that Christian showed did not show you the replay of him talking cash, like right in the guy's face, like right after he hit it, like basically like, you can't stop me, and that's the difference between early season Duncan Robinson and right now, Duncan Robinson is going to let it fly no matter what, and that portends really well for the rest of this season and the playoffs.
Well, this is
it felt like.
Go ahead, David.
Sorry, it felt like watching JJ Redick a little bit, like with the movement and being that almost like that third option, especially once Bam is back. But just the way that he's able to move around and shoot those contested threes, it felt a little bit like watching JJ Redick last night.
Yeah, Redick was always a good comp. We've always said too that the Heat historically have had the cockiest white guys in the entire NBA, whether it was Jason Williams or Chris Anderson or any of these or Robinson or Hero now. They sort of breed them.
Their first 20, I think their first 18 or 21 points were all by white guys.
They were all by white guys. Yeah, they are, but they're cocky white guys. It's a weird.
I wanted
to Boston Celtics.
I wanted to tweet white excellence, but I guess in this climate, it probably wouldn't.
No.
It wasn't a good idea.
A lot of people will be confused reading that.
White excellence matters.
One thing though, David just made a really interesting point about Redick. By the way, I don't know how we didn't come up with that name when we were naming elite shooters. Redick is a great example. He's obviously smaller than Duncan, but you look at the Sixers last year with Jimmy, their whole playbook a lot of times revolved around the Embiid and Redick dribble handoff. And I don't know how we haven't really made this comparison before. It just like clicked in my head because that's what a lot of the Sixers offense was last year, because they needed to find spacing, and you can't just have Redick standing there. You got to really take advantage of his spacing the way that the Heat do with Duncan. So I think that's actually a pretty good comparison, except the Heat are just, Bam is way better at it because Bam is just another beast at this point.
Well, the problem is I think of Redick as a podcaster now, not a player. I kind of forgot that he's actually on New Orleans because he's just become such a prolific podcaster. But let's get to the other topic that I thought Alf touched on. Is Duncan Robinson right now the most important player on the Heat's offense?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I'm stumped.
I think he is right now. I definitely think he is right now. But I think that when you're projecting, I think Tyler Hero being 20 and Duncan Robinson being 26, I think that Tyler Hero will have a better offensive game than Duncan Robinson in 6 years. 6 years from now, I definitely think that he can, because he's shown plenty of just as bad as the shooting was last night. He showed so many positives. So I think 6 years from now, he'll definitely have that advantage over Duncan, but as of right now, Duncan, I think, has the advantage.
Right now, most people would say it's Jimmy, right? But all of us, I think, are thinking about Duncan. Is Duncan more? What Jimmy provides, which is he's basically their point guard in most situations. He is their best at getting to the line. We talk about
gets to the line more than Harden, by the way, at a possession rate.
On a possession rate. But is Duncan in other words, in which way would the Heat offense struggle more? Pulling out Duncan Robinson for 2 weeks or pulling out Jimmy Butler for 2 weeks?
Pulling out Duncan Robinson. Yeah.
I mean, Duncan's gravity kind of moves the defense in a certain way. You have to pay attention to him. I mean, that's why. I mean, last night when the Kings were leaving him open early, you had no idea why. Like, whoever wrote that scouting report, like you guys said, that guy needs to be fired because it doesn't make any sense. So his gravity on the floor just moves the defense. It creates driving lanes for Jimmy and Kendrick once he's back, and the dribble handoff stuff that Alex was talking about. I mean, all of that stuff, it's integral. You can kind of replicate some of what Jimmy does from like a ball handling standpoint, an initiation standpoint. I mean, with Goran to a certain extent, but Duncan's ability to shoot at a high clip, I mean, that weapon is a huge one for Spo.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, though. We're talking about the Duncan shooting. I think his offense revolves so much, like, it's looked at as a shooter, but the way he changes the offense when he's in the game, when he's shooting the ball, when you see like he's setting a pick, two guys flash high. I think you look at Bam with the dribble handoffs, but how many times has Duncan went for a shot and dumped it off low to Bam for a layup?
Exactly.
I think Bam with Duncan with
that's why it's so
more than right.
Brady's exactly right. What he does, he turns them into from a regular offense into an elite offense, and the numbers show it. His offensive rating, the offensive rating when he's on the floor just is he has the best offensive rating on the entire team just because. Yeah, exactly.
Offensively, isn't he just Clay now?
He's Clay.
Yeah, he is, and that's the thing. It's like you were watching yesterday. Like David was saying, like they were like so afraid of Jimmy going downhill. They were double teaming, and they were leaving Duncan alone. And Heat fans are like, "Are you serious? Like you really want to leave Duncan Robinson alone?" But then what do? You do Jimmy. You put one guy on Jimmy, because we all know what happens when Jimmy puts his head down and goes downhill. He's either getting a basket or he's getting to the line. So it's like a pick your poison kind of thing, but that doesn't happen without Duncan Robinson on the floor. Like he makes so many things move because of the way that he shoots. And you saw the Kings change their game plan mid first quarter. We're not talking about a halftime adjustment. In the middle of the first quarter, they had to change their entire game plan. And it wasn't because of anyone else but Duncan. Like he is the engine that drives that offense because shooting drives the offense. And he's the best shooter on the team.
So to that end, let's talk about that. And thanks, Syed, joining us from Bahrain. So we've got people joining us from all over the world right now. So to that end, we've talked a lot, Alex, about the way that Milwaukee and Toronto like to defend. Okay? That the way that they like to defend is basically they're going to give you threes, but they're going to try to make sure the right players are shooting those threes. That's the whole strategy. And we don't need to get into all the specifics of it, but that's the overriding strategy of their defenses. Milwaukee's executed it better than most teams the past 25 years. But how do Milwaukee and Toronto in particular keep Duncan Robinson in check? What do they do defensively? What do they alter? Because Boston, I think what they do is they go at Duncan Robinson on defense all the time. That seemed to be what they did, whether it was Hayward, Tatum, Brown, whatever. What do those two teams do?
I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly right. Because of everything we're talking about and just the offensive weapon he's turned into, you have to account for him as a superstar offensively. Even though he's not going to do stuff with the ball like a Dame Lillard, he can get to his shot just as frequently without having to do all the ball stuff. That's the genius of what Spo has done here with their offense that we did not see coming. I remember before the season, we were obviously projecting Justice Winslow to be a starting point guard, so it's a different looking team. But we were talking about it like, I wonder how good their offense is going to be. And now it's just like, it's not even a question anymore. It's so spaced out, right? Like if you try to go crazy hard to run Duncan off of the line, there's going to be other shooters open. We saw that last night because since there's no Bam, there's just an extra shooter in the lineup, and it was just impossible. And so I think it's going to be really tough for the teams like the Bucks and Raptors to do it, but they're going to try their hardest to run them off the line, and they're going to just leave other guys open, which is, at the end of the day, you don't want that if you're the Heat because you'd rather have Duncan shooting, but they have so many good shooters, and their worst shooters are even like they'll make the open corner three. I'm not really worried about it.
What I will say about Duncan is to guard Duncan is just not easy. And that's the thing that's the biggest thing about Duncan is that there are other guys that shoot the three as well as he does.
They're going to throw a second guy at him.
Yeah, but there's few guys that make it as hard to stop. Like he moves all the time on offense. So you can say we're going to stop Duncan Robinson, but you have to find a guy who can just run through every pick in the world because the Heat are going to set multiple picks for Duncan, dribble handoff, whatever. They're going to find ways to get him open. So now
Myers is excellent as a screener also. I remember Dwayne Wade always used to talk about this. It's funny you mentioned J.J. Redick earlier because I had many conversations with Dwayne where he talked about the one defensive assignment he hated was J.J. Redick. He hated, and I think he even tweeted about that recently to J.J. J.J. did a podcast. He hated guarding J.J. Redick.
He would say that about Rip too, right? About Rip Hamilton.
Rip. Well, because Rip was the best at. But see, Rip would do it differently because Rip was not a three-point shooter.
It was mid-range.
He was mid-range. Yeah. Rip would run you like crazy.
Which has to be harder, right?
It is.
You're going to the guys in the paint.
Yeah, I worked with Rip actually for 6 months at CBS, and he would tell a lot of Dwayne stories about what he would try to do to get Dwayne off his game. And that was the whole strategy against Dwayne. When Dwayne was at the top of his game, we're talking 05, 06, and it was just running Rip Hamilton off of screen after screen after screen and driving him crazy. The same with Ray. All right, we're going to transition off this, get to a little bit something more fun here. I know the reason now why Jimmy Butler is growing the mustache. This is a very important topic today.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Do we have a sounder, Manny?
We
Manny in the back. Do we have a sounder for the breaking news?
Give me something. This is our floor plan for tonight. Jimmy Butler is, most people should be freaked out about coronavirus. Jimmy Butler is probably the most freaked out on the entire team. He refuses to bring in a barber. He won't let anybody shave him. He's not gonna. So what you see with Jimmy Butler right now, it's gonna get worse. Okay, it's gonna be his bubble stash. He's letting it grow. He will not let anybody touch it.
This is truly a scientific experiment here to see the results of how he plays.
How he plays, how much this affects him. I don't know if everybody saw the Hall & Oates video that he basically cut for Michelob Light today. Where the only thing that stunned me is that Daryl Hall is 73 years old, which, I mean, that makes me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's amazing. But so anyway, so I had some questions last night.
Are we doing the Hall & Oates bit?
We should do the Hall & Oates bits. We should. Man-eater. Say it. What is it? Kiss on my list.
No clue what any of that means.
No, you don't have any. You don't have any idea. I grew up with it a lot.
Jesus
Brady, you know what that means?
No idea.
No, that's Blue-Eyed Soul, man. Alf, you know that, right?
Yeah. No, listen. Don't age me, bro. I'm as old as Alex. I listen to Lil Baby and Lil Nuck and mumble rap.
You were waiting for Jae Crowder to drop the 2 tracks last night. You were.
Lane understands what I'm saying with the Hall & Oates bit.
There you go. Check your allies. There you go.
No, Daryl Hall is the blonde one. Not Oates was the.
You are literally doing the Hawkins ass bit right now.
One person, isn't it?
It is one person. All right, so we'll switch off of that, but that's where Jimmy is going to go. People who know Hall & Oates use AOL emails. By the way, there are 2 people in the media down here who still use AOL emails.
Lebitard
and Mark Jones.
We got on Mark Jones about that.
We got on that. All right, let's transition to the next basketball thing today. Oladipo scrimmaged today. There's still this question about whether he's going to play, not going to play. I don't know if he's teasing at this stage. He didn't look real good. I caught some of it today. I mean, it's a little rusty. Guys are going to be rusty. I know our friend Stan Van Gundy basically scolded everybody on Twitter for paying attention to 2 preseason games or 1 scrimmage game and after 4 months and making an assessment. Do you guys expect Oladipo to play? And at this point for Indiana, does it matter? Are they a threat to the Heat? Now that Sabonis has plantar fasciitis, are they even a threat to the Heat anyway?
Oh, man, that's a good point. The Sabonis thing really does change things because he was arguably their best player all season, right? You can make a case for Brogdon because he was their engine, but Sabonis was really important to them. And without him, I don't know that Oladipo is going to be able to kind of fill in that gap, considering that he's not really anywhere close to 100% based on his play right now. And he was trending the right way, by the way, just to be fair. Before the end of the season, I read that the last 5 games of the season, he was averaging like 19 points on 48% shooting from the field, which, again, it's 5 games, but, it was a little bit of a trend upwards. So I'd like to see a little bit more from Oladipo, but I think you're right there that without Sabonis, even with Oladipo there, I don't think maybe they could win a game or two against the Heat, but I thought it would be a great series with the Pacers healthy, and now I'm not really sure.
David, can they press the Heat in any way, or do the Heat need to get to 3 essentially to chase down Boston to get Indiana in the first round, avoid the Milwaukee bracket, and in that case they would avoid the Milwaukee bracket, they'd avoid the Boston bracket, right? And they just would have to deal with with Philadelphia, with Indiana and then Toronto in the second round potentially.
I mean, that the way that it's laid out like that, if we can have Indiana and then Toronto, that might be best case scenario for the Heat, because I mean, at this point, I don't know that Indiana without Sabonis, with Oladipo at 75% or whatever percentage you want to put at it, I don't know that they can push the Heat that much. I mean, they'll be scrappy. They're well coached. They've got some interesting pieces, with Brogdon, Miles Turner's okay.
TJ Warren, man, he's been lighting it up.
Right, and then there's that sort of
what
emotional
happens when Jimmy murders him?
TJ and Butler. But that path, Indiana, Toronto, and then eventually I guess Milwaukee is probably best case scenario for the Heat at that point. Most winnable certainly.
No doubt.
Go ahead, Ray.
I kind of wonder if Oladipo's kind of going to make his decision on playing, like kind of see who their first round matchup is. I could kind of see him playing against Miami if to kind of prove like maybe one come to Miami or anything. But I think if it's a 6 seed Boston matchup, he might sit out and I'm not saying anything.
But Brady, it's possible, but
I like that.
If he doesn't feel 100%, he may not want to go against Miami. That's
right.
The other thing. I think it depends where he is health-wise. I think one of the big questions with Indiana is we haven't seen the Brogdon-Oladipo backcourt long enough to know how that's going to work. Because without Oladipo, Brogdon, took over a lot of the offense in a way he did not in Milwaukee. And then Oladipo came back, and I thought it was going to take some time before the two of them got on the same page. And we just haven't seen it long enough. To me, if Miami can chase down Boston, obviously that's the route. They'll get Indiana twice in the last 3 games here. And Miami could be the team that knocks Indiana down to 6, basically. And it's going to be interesting with the Heat, because do you want to knock them down to 6 and get Philadelphia if you're not chasing down, if you can't chase down Boston, right? If you're stuck in the 4, if Boston gets off to a hot start and you can't, and remember, Boston has a tiebreaker on the Heat. So if you can't chase Boston down, which I think the Heat thought they had a chance to do with the old schedule, but once you wiped all the Clevelands and the Knicks off the Heat schedule, it's tougher now. If you can't chase them down, you're stuck in 4. Do you want to lose a game or 2 to Indiana? Make sure maybe they get the 5 and you don't get stuck with Philly?
I know Jimmy wouldn't want to do that. I know he's going to try to win every game he plays against Indiana, especially.
Then they'll sit Jimmy in the second half. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Old man,
you're gonna get a lot of Solomon Hill minutes.
The Heat would never admit it, but that's exactly how it would happen.
Honestly, right? I think if I ever see Solomon Hill, he's gonna punch me in my neck. And I don't have a problem with Solomon Hill. Like I just feel like he's just the odd man out, and I feel like I always bring him up as the example of the Heat's depth, like guys who are not going to see the floor. And what they proved me wrong yesterday. Solomon Hill got early minutes. They're missing 2 starters, so.
After I saw that jumper, I was starting to feel a little bit better about Solomon Hill. That 1-3 he made was real smooth. And not only that, Giancarlo Navas of Heatbeat invited me on today to talk to him, and he was really cool, man. I'm in on Solomon Hill.
Solomon Hill is a competent NBA player, but that just shows the Heat depth. That like who do you play him over? Why did you put that up? Don't read that one.
I'm not reading that comment.
We've been talking about that in the group chats for a minute. There's a striking similarity. Like, listen, there's a striking resemblance.
Between Solomon Hill and Justice Winslow.
Yeah, I'm black. I can say that. You guys can't. If you guys say it, it's weird. But I can say it.
But I think part of the Solomon Hill thing, and I didn't think we were going to talk much about Solomon Hill tonight, but part of the Solomon Hill thing, I mean, Solomon Hill earned a pretty big contract in the NBA. Like he was a starter for a period of time. I think it's the look. He just doesn't look like an NBA player anymore.
It's not the look. It's not the look. It's just he it feels like he never reached his potential. So
he was always like a theoretical 3-and-D guy who was never
exactly. But when has he actually fulfilled that potential? Like, you would think if anybody can get him there, the Heat can. But I almost don't want them to, because I don't want him to get a 4-year, $60 million deal.
I think Pat's over those. I think
we're past that. We're past that.
Solomon Hill, though, he was the one with the highest 3-point percentage from the 3 guys that they acquired, by the way, and he was playing some ninth man rotation minutes in Memphis, and along with Crowder. So I don't know. I'm not. We already know they're not going to depend on him, so it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, he could be a plug-in guy who ends up coming in and just playing solid defense and hitting a 3 or 2, just like a Crowder might.
He's a solid defender. He's a solid defender off the benches they have.
He's a
competent piece for the back end rotation.
He's big, by the way. He can guard. I think
that's
a bigger
what I'm saying.
3 or 4 too.
He might be. He's as solid a defender they have off the bench outside of Derrick Jones Jr. I mean, Iguodala and Crowder. I mean, I think he's right there with all those guys. With the older Iguodala, I feel like he's right there with all those guys defensively. I just need to see more from him offensively. But listen, he just got into the system. Like, you got to see what he can do.
Well, okay, so I want to talk about Jae Crowder for a second. Because
you don't want to talk about Dion Waiters? Because I keep getting tweets about Dion Waiters.
What is Dion doing right now? I want to talk about.
Apparently, he's just chucking up shots, and he's out of control right now.
Well, somebody said, Benjamin says it's beautiful. Here's one question with Jae Crowder, because I keep making this point that of those 3-and-D type guys, the one who's going to play is the one who actually makes the threes. Are we concerned seriously about the Jae Crowder regression to the mean? Because you mentioned that he didn't shoot as well as Solomon Hill from 3 in Memphis. Jae Crowder was awful from 3 in Memphis. He wasn't like borderline.
The only year he was a good 3-point shooter, just by the percentages. Not I wouldn't mind him taking an open 3 in any of these years, but the only year he had a good 3-point shooting percentage was that one year in Boston where they were kind of overplayed their roster when Isaiah Thomas really took that leap. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't come. The one thing with Crowder to me, though, is that he does not play like he's a whatever shooter. He is looking for that shot. He's going. Right. He's like at some points there when he gets really into it, he's like trying to like almost emulate Duncan Robinson. Like he's like moving all over the place, darting around, trying to get the ball and shoot it. And I don't know, it's a little aggressive, but I'm glad that he's that confident. And the shot doesn't look bad when it comes off his hand. So. I wouldn't be surprised if he had like a 1 of 5 game, every now and then. You know what I'm saying?
But that's my question. You want guys to be confident, but you want Duncan Robinson to be confident. Sometimes when
that's not going away.
Right? No, but sometimes when you have shooters who are not pure shooters, here's an example. Okay, they're not the same type of player. Remember the way Gerald Green, and I don't want to talk about Flacco. Okay, but remember Gerald Green when he came in during preseason. And he was lighting everybody up. He was averaging like 27 points a game.
Preseason Gerald Green.
And then he went through a stretch in the end of the regular season, where he didn't have a point. I felt bad because I was picking on him on Twitter. He didn't score for 73 minutes. He played 73 consecutive minutes and did not score a point, but was not stopping shooting. Would not. And I'm not saying Jae Crowder's not that kind of player. He's not a selfish player. He's not a loose cannon, all the rest of that. But I just wonder when you have guys who are not pure shooters, and we've seen Jae go through stretches of his career where he can shoot in the 20s for a long period of time from 3. I just wonder if it's always a good thing when a guy seems to give himself the green light. DJJ does too. Jay's not the only one. DJJ's looking for that shot too, and Eric's not going to stop him because that's not his mentality. But when you have on this team Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Myers Leonard, Kelly Olynyk, I'm missing one. Who are all plus 3-point shooters. Dragic, those 6.
And that's the thing, really, because there's so many shooters.
And then you have Iguodala, who is a good clutch 3-point shooter and is at least an average 3-point shooter over the course of his career.
Very good from the corners.
Very good for the corners. Although Tony Fiorentino threw at me on Twitter, I talked about him making the corner 3, and he says 33% career 3-point shooter. I'm like, okay, that's not great. But he's better in the big situations. But do you want then Jae Crowder and Derrick Jones Jr. being so aggressive looking for their threes, David, if you have all these other guys?
Listen, the great thing about what just happened here is that we listed like half the roster, more than half the roster. So Spo has the flexibility to kind of plug in who's sort of hitting that night, and with the sort of positional flexibility that they have with Crowder and Iguodala and DJJ, all these guys can sort of play that 3-and-D role. They're sort of undersized fours, but the whole league is undersized fours now, right? So he can just go with the guy with the hot hand. I mean, I know that Spo tends to have like a very sort of regimented rotation and things like that. But if Crowder's not hitting, I mean, he's probably not going to be in the game at that point. So, they're going to take those shots early, but, ideally the closing lineup has whichever one of those 3 or 4 guys that's hitting that night, at least to be the threat.
All right, let's switch here. Again, when you're listening to Floor's Yours here on 5, this is an extension of 5 on the Floor. You also can hear this on Dash Radio, the Nothing But Net channel. Thanks to everybody who's sending in the comments tonight. This is a lot looser than our typical episodes because we bring in other people. If you're listening here and you don't recognize some of the voices, in addition to Alex Toledo and Alphonse Sidney, got David Fernandez and Brady Hawk. We're going to be mixing in more people on these Thursday night shows. We actually debut them at 8 o'clock, and then they run on Dash the next morning. Want to get to the next scrimmage. They play Utah coming up. That's on Saturday, I believe at 1:30. That's their second of 3 scrimmages. The Jazz are interesting but chaotic right now. We don't really know what the Gobert-Mitchell relationship is other than what's been written about on ESPN.com. They don't have Bogdanovich, who I didn't even realize what kind of season he was having, where he was averaging 20 a game for them. What do you
another elite shooter that's not going to be there in the bubble?
Absolutely. So Duncan Robinson just kicking them all out. American sniper.
They're afraid.
Yeah, they're afraid. What do you want to see against? Let's say Indiana is playing Mitchell, is playing Gobert, is playing Joe Ingles. So they still have a pretty competent group there. What do you want to see, Alex, against Utah? What can you get done?
I mean, honestly, it's going to be a good test, right? Like I think it's a lot more of an indicator of real basketball. And again, we know that they're not going to, they don't really go 100% because it's a lot of this is like preseason vibes to it, I feel. And, even some summer league vibes once it gets to the third and fourth quarter and these bench players are coming in and it seems like that's what the Heat are going to keep doing. But for those first 2 quarters, though, I'm going to be interested to see how they look against the Jazz. The Jazz, maybe had a little bit higher expectations because Conley was supposed to still be an all-star level player and he wasn't. But that's still an elite defense. That's still a very, very good team that was on their way to winning another, 48, 50 or so. So I'm excited to see how they do against an elite defense. And there's a good chance Bam doesn't play tomorrow, right? I think that's still the case.
Yeah, I don't think Bam will play. I would be surprised if Bam or Kendrick play. I think they may try to get him a few minutes in the third scrimmage, but I don't anticipate that they would play on Saturday.
We're gonna see a lot more of the same for sure because Gobert always drops back, and I think we're gonna see a lot of threes. We're gonna see a lot of 3-point attempts again.
What do you want to see, Alf?
I want to see them slow down a good backcourt. Like that's my biggest thing. I just want to see them slow down a good backcourt. I want to see how they're going to do it without Kendrick Nunn, and with Goran Dragic not able to lead that second unit. And you're relying on Goran Dragic's defense in the first unit. I just want to see how they scheme against a really, really good backcourt. Because you're talking about, it's Conley's playing, right?
Yeah, he's playing.
Conley, it's Conley and Mitchell.
There was talk of him bringing him off the bench. I don't know. They've got Royce O'Neal. They've got some other guys there.
Well, you're either no matter who they put in, you're talking about an adequate backcourt, and I want to see how the Heat stop them. And that to me, that's going to be the story of the entire postseason, the entire rest of this regular season. How are the Heat going to play against elite backcourts? Because when you start talking about Kemba Walker and Kyle Lowry and Ben Simmons and all these guys, like how are you going to stop these guys? What are you going to, what is your game plan? So that's what I would like to see because there are going to be games that Goran misses, Kendrick Nunn misses. And right now they're without Kendrick Nunn. So what's the game plan? That's my biggest thing I'm looking for.
Brady, what do you want to see?
Yeah, I've touched on the defensive part, which is probably the most important. But when you look at the offensive side, I'm interested in seeing how Tyler Hero bounces back after that shooting game. I'm interested to see how he how he reacts to this type of environment after that. I kind of think that Spo kind of left him in yesterday, kind of as like an experience or a learning curve that he's got to kind of figure it out when he goes through tough stretches.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the most thing I look forward to that I think is most important. But I also, if Bam was to play, I'm interested in seeing that defensive lineup that's been talked about, with Butler, DJJ, Crowder, Iggy, and Bam. We saw those four play yesterday together, but I'm interested to see how we know how the defense is going to look with that, but I'm interested to see how the offense is going to look with those five guys on the court.
Yeah, that's the I think they're going to have to mix in one shooter there. I mean, it sounds suffocating when you think about it with those five guys, but it sounds suffocating on offense.
Well, he didn't. Did you not hear? Derek is a shooter now.
No, I know Derek's a shooter, and I know Iggy made.
Derek's been telling us he's
a
a knockdown shooter for like 2 summers now.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if the Bulls believe it, he's going to get 15.
That one shot,
but
that one shot looked good though. Gotta say,
his form is fine. Like he doesn't have bad form. I mean, none of these guys were really talking about do. I mean, I'm watching Giannis make threes from the vice court, and Giannis still has that hitch in that 3-point stroke. Like it doesn't look good.
Did you see? I was watching the highlights from the Bucks game, and I honestly, first of all, that video that you're referring to where he was shooting on the vice court, which just looked amazing. Giannis balling on the vice court like that. Well, also with the assistant coach who just happened to look a lot like one of the Heat's assistant coaches. But I mean, not the assistant coach, the trainer. But anyways, his jumper, I'm kind of liking it, man. I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing. I think Giannis might start hitting some of these open jumpers when Big Sink out. You see those highlights, man. He was doing it. I'm a little bit worried about that.
But there's a lot of guys that can shoot. We saw Ben Simmons. There was a bunch of videos of him shooting threes, doing turnaround jumpers in the corner threes. So I don't.
At least Giannis tries it during the games.
Right.
I have seen. I will say NBA players are amazing in this way. The guys you don't think you can shoot, if you watch them in warm-ups, where they're not. What is it about my headphone cord? They're gonna be a hard time with my headphone cord.
Honestly, every time it gives me like my anxiety is through the roof just looking at it.
Look at this.
Oh my god!
I tried AirPods and I can't. My ears. I have.
No, listen. Ears. I have a cord too, bro. Like, what is happening there? Like,
because I have like 3 that are stuck together, and I need my 6-year-old to help remove them.
Oh my god! Just like put it like away properly.
It also gives me anxiety when I see Ethan using the earphones instead of the mic.
Yeah, that's not a good thing either. What were we talking about? Oh, Giannis making threes. I will tell you, every NBA player, if you watch them in warm-ups, is going to make 10 straight threes. I mean, I've seen Udonis drain 3. I used to watch Shaq drain threes in warm-ups, okay? These guys can all make that shot. Alex, before we close here, people have asked this over there. They want to know what are the posters of behind you.
Listen, man, we don't have enough time for that.
I get this question all the time. Just give me one. Give me one poster that's behind you.
Like in the wall that I've always got behind me, I've got right here. See, I wasn't prepared for this. Sorry. I got Dwight Howard. This is, by the way, posters I've had since I was a kid. These have been here for years. I've got over here Kobe. I've got Shaq and Wade here that my friends drew on and, just kind of violated and ruined the integrity of the whole thing. I got Steph up top here, Chris Paul. I've got a poster that came with a Kanye album here. I got a poster that came with a good music album here, which is Kanye's label. I was a big Kanye guy back in the day, and there's plenty more basketball posters here.
Are you voting for Kanye? Are you voting for Kanye?
No, don't worry. It's a late registration.
The late registration. Does he get divorced before he becomes president?
Oh,
we got some money in there. Look at that. Thank you.
This is a big moment.
Alex, look at that. Alex could eat for a week. Look at that. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan, for donating.
That's $5.
Coach Rochester. Coach Rochester tells me that my tangled mess here of headphones looks like the Heat's cap situation going into 2019. Just like Pat Riley, I am going to untangle it.
There are no obstacles, Ethan.
There are no obstacles, Ethan.
There are no obstacles. That's the shirt I'm wearing. There are no obstacles. See that?
But you're not Andy Ellisberg.
There are obstacles, but there are none.
You are the anti Andy Ellisberg of headphone wires. Like that is so I've told this story. I'm going to tell it every show until you detangle your headphones. Ethan walks around the Heat Arena with a mess of wires and he brings a laptop bag, puts it down in the media room, takes his laptop out, and walks around with a mess of wires and chargers. And he just holds his laptop and the charger and walks. Honestly, I think most people think he's an insane person.
I'm homeless. I'm homeless.
They think a homeless person is rambling around the arena with an old laptop.
Well,
it's a huge laptop too. It looks like an early 2000s laptop. It's huge.
There you go. See?
And he has a charger and
the camera doesn't work.
Who takes your laptop out of the bag and walks around a public place with it? He's an insane person.
I like that joke.
Alf, I was homeless for a little while. You're aware of that. So
I know.
That's what
but
happens.
It has nothing to do with your laptop bag. Just use it.
All right. I think this is a good place to close. My daughter's baking a cake in my apartment right now. David Fernandez, thank you for joining us. Again, you can follow. David, quick prediction before we go. Marlins playing 60 games, we think. How many do they win?
I think at least 25. They're going to surprise some people.
All right.
25 wins for the Marlins. Brady, you can catch him. He's youngest sports agent on IG, but you can also catch his work on 5reasonsports.com. Alex Toledo, follow him at Tropical Blanket. Alf954, Ethan J. Skolnick. Thanks for listening to us. I know this sounds like a mess on Nothing But Nets Dash Radio, but we have fun every Thursday night, so you get that from us on Friday. We'll be back next week. Nekias Duncan's going to join us again early next week. He's making the rounds. He's going to get back to our podcast. Thank you, everybody who joined us tonight, for all the comments. Thanks for listening to the YouTube channel. We are going to be blowing that thing out. We're going to have so much content there. Check out Janelle Moore's new show, I Got More, that posted this morning, and all the other content. We're putting all the Zoom videos from the Heat post games where Alex is frustrating Eric Spoelstra. All of those go on our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for Alex for beating Alf to the party tonight.
At the buzzer, baby, like Dion.